Hope you guys just got through a nice walk in this. Just really wanted to talk to you for a moment. Uh, Today, spent a good portion of my day George Floyd, and I just can't help but think about the senseless act that is going on across America. Um, from the killing of our unarmed black and brown men and women. And my life, or a good portion of my social media life, that is, I was afraid to speak out because, you think about from a professional standpoint, we live in an age now where companies, they want to, they look at your social media to decide if you're a good candidate or if you're someone that'll fit within the parameters of their organization. And so, a lot of times they can use your social media against you. Uh, you know, kind of hindered me from always this injustice that has been going on. And then I began to realize that, I shouldn't be penalized for being able to speak about I in this country. Nor should any person be penalized to vocalize what's going on. Wrong is wrong. And so I know it's an uncomfortable topic when we start talking about race, when we start and the injustices seen between black and brown people. And it makes our white friends uncomfortable. And so we revert to this notion that all lives matter. In fact, if all lives matter, why is it such a issue if we pinpoint the fact that black lives matter? But not only does black lives matter, because I think we have to take it a step further. Um, Not only does our life matter, but our life is valuable. And there is no fact or no idea that can be expressed that will ring loud enough. And we won't be silent as long as we're not getting justice. As long as we're not seen as equals, as long as we're not treated as equals, as long as this industrial prison system is in place, as long as a subpar education system is in place for black and brown people, as long as home ownership is kept away from black and brown people, we won't be silent. As long as protesters are being attacked in the streets by police officers, and these are protesters of all colors because America is starting to stand up. And white people are starting to march just as much as black people. And as long as, the police are still dehumanizing us in the streets, we won't be silent. Instead, we will gather with one voice and one sound, and we will decree and declare that our life matters and that we will not sit comfortably in our seats as black and brown lives are being snuffed out all across this country. And it's beginning to get to the point that they don't care how old you are. As long as you're black or brown, this systemic racist system doesn't really care about you. And so we want to speak out against this. We're not going to be satisfied until our voices are not only heard, but actions are taken upon the voices that you hear. Because it's one thing to march, it's one thing to protest, but it's another thing to see change. It's another thing to see change that comes from our criminal justice system. It's another thing when you see change that starts to happen within our laws. And so we won't be silent until we begin to see that type of change. We're not satisfied with an apology, or we're not satisfied with people saying, oh, we get your story. Let's change the dynamic of that story. Let's begin to change the outcome of what's happening to us across this country and across this nation. Because enough is enough. I did a video a few weeks ago called No Justice, No Peace. And so we won't sit peacefully in our homes and be content that it didn't happen to our family, because we don't know when uh, one of our brothers and sisters will be next. And it's going to take the efforts of all people. If all lives matter, let's have all lives stand up and fight for a cause that is directly geared towards black lives, right? That will be the thing that makes sense. Otherwise, the notion that all lives matter is something that needs to go away if the people that protest that all lives matter are not willing to stand for black lives, because all lives right now are not being killed in the streets. Had George Floyd been the police officer and the person's neck that was on the ground was a white boy, I can guarantee you that the scenario will be completely different. And all of us in this country know that. All of us in this country know that. And so for me, if you are a person that is not of color and you are afraid to stand up for us and stand up with us, I want to say, give me my stuff back. For every person that wants to rob our culture, give us our stuff back. For every woman that may not be African American that desires to have curvaceous bodies and full lips and hips, and you don't want to stand with our sisters, give us our stuff back. For every person that's not black and you want to rap, or you want to, add to this hip hop and R&B life, you want to dress like us, you want to talk like us, if you're not willing to stand with us, give us our stuff back. Stop using us like this systemic system has always done. Didn't matter if it was slavery, when they used our skills, our strength to build this country for which we are not even welcomed in. So if that's the case, give it back to us. Give us all of black culture. Give us all of our existence. Everything that we created, everything that we built, everything that we made better, give it back to us. If you're not willing to stand with us now, don't use any part of us. And if you are for the cause, we appreciate you. Thank you. Because it's one thing for black people to stand and fight by ourselves, but it's another thing for those that don't look like us to stand as well. Because I know that takes courage, because when you begin to stand, those that look like you will begin to reject you if they're not really for the cause. And I want to thank every person that is changing from within, every black and white person that's looking deep within themselves and demanding that change comes. Because I think that self-realization is the key for change. It's not until we realize the things about ourselves that is flawed that we will begin to introduce change into this world. And we all can do a little bit more changing. And so I think that's one of the major keys to seeing this thing really get fulfilled. And this is one of those things that will really help each other progress. And, it's so easy for us, as we begin to speak out against black lives and all of this stuff, everybody has something to say. Generally, this system has taught us to hate ourselves as black people. This system has taught us to stand against one another as a race. And so that's one of the reasons why we see so much happening, because people are afraid to stand together that look alike. And so it's time for us to unite. I've said it once and I said it again. It's time for us to strategize. It's time for us to come together from home to home, town to town, street to street, city to city, and state to state. It's time for us to look past our religious differences, our economic differences, our personal beliefs. And it's time to focus our union, our unity on one cause. And that's the thing that this system hates. And so when we start talking about unification that builds the total person, the system hates it. Doesn't matter if it's a person like Bob Marley that's singing peace. The system hates it. Doesn't matter if it's Martin Luther King marching for civil rights for all people. The system hates it. It doesn't matter if it's a Malcolm X that stands with the Nation of Islam and wants equal rights by any means necessary. The system hates it. And so, I think that we must wake up now, all people, black people especially, white people. It's time for us to wake up. If you're a person that cares about the human race, because now we're dealing with a civil matter, it's something that supersedes skin. It's something that supersedes uh, what we're seeing. There's some deep hatred rooted within this country, and it's always been there. It never really got you know, it never was gone. I think about one time when I was playing football, I had got a staph infection. Now, staph is on our skin, and so I was playing a game and really muddy on the field. Ants was all on the field, and I was scratching the whole time, and so I didn't realize it, but I had got a staph infection and went for some weeks, and this poison was inside of my body, and I didn't really know it because everything on the outside didn't really look that bad, and the sore that was there kind of went away. And this happened pretty much the first game of the season, and by the time we got to district, follow me, I'm going somewhere. By the time we got to district, I kept getting chopped, and my leg instantly swelled up, and it was full of poison. It was full of infection. So much so that if it had gotten in my bloodstream, I would have died. And so they had to lance this cut. And we're in that same situation. Just because we thought that racism didn't exist or it was dead, and that people think all the same and that we're unified in our thoughts and our love, we've been watching lives die that's been cutting us and blocking us. And now that wound has grown to the point to where it's ready to explode. And if we're to see real healing across this nation, we're going to have to do like the doctors did with my leg. They had to lance it and put some gauze inside the wound, because it was important that the wound heals from the inside out. Had something just come over the top of that wound, the top would have looked okay, but inside the wound would have continued to get more infected, and I would have been back in the same situation. And so now it's time for us to wake up. If we don't look at what's going on, we can't stop until true healing takes place, until true love is interjected into the behalf of every person, every human, both black and white, brown, yellow. Doesn't matter what color, what race you are. Doesn't matter your background. Doesn't matter your education. Doesn't matter your financial history or your plot in life. Until we all begin to see that we need change and start moving towards that change, we're only going to allow these wounds to get back infected, and our country will end up being in a greater state of division than it is now. So my beck and call is that we start at the local level, start from within, and look without. Then and only then can we begin to see permanent change that will impact the lives of everybody that it touches. Because believe it or not, we as a people touch the world. And so it's time for us to look deep within ourselves, because I believe that we can be better and we can do better. I believe that we as a people, a group of black people, royalty is within our blood. We are more than slaves that have come over on slave ships and was forced to do labor and treated very horribly. We're much more than that. And this system doesn't want us to know from which we really come from, the stock that is in our blood. So that's just my little spiel. Again, appreciate everybody that's standing up with us, those that are demanding justice in the streets. The kingdom of God suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. And so sometimes, if somebody's not going to give you what's due you, you have to take it back. And so this is Elgin Stevens. Until I see you again, peace.